So hello, everyone. I'm Sheeba from San Ramon, California, US, administrators group. I've been in the group leader of this group since 2020. And I welcome you all and thanks for sparing your Saturday time with us. So I am a little introduction about myself. I am a co-founder of kindcause.org, and I'm working currently as a senior Salesforce admin at Jamf. I had the privilege to present at Dreamforce 2021. I was 4 times Ranger, 8 times Super Badge, and just recently got my advanced admin and user experience designer certification and became 9 times certified. I've also got elected as a community group leader, board member last year. And we have now about more than 400 members in San Ramon, California admin group. That's my introduction, and I'm feel highly privileged and super excited to welcome Eric Dreshfield to our meeting. He's going to talk about personal branding and how we can drive our career, and also give us a fantastic demo on Mogli app. So over to you, Eric, for your introduction and your presentation.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sheeba.
I'll just make you the co-host. So I stop share. Yeah. Are you able to share your screen?
Should be now. There we go. Yep, we got it.
Thank you.
All right, I am going to shut my video off while I'm doing this, just in case the internet decides to be a little funky. All right, well, hello, everybody. Thanks for coming today. I appreciate it. We're going to start with a brief discussion around what Mogli is all about, and then we'll dive into talking more on personal branding after that. There we go. A little bit about me that's not actually on this screen, other than a product evangelist for Mogli. I have been a Salesforce MVP since 2013. I'm in the MVP Hall of Fame now as of last year, I used to joke around when they first introduced the Hall of Fame that was like where they put the old MVPs out to retire, and now since they've done that, to me it's not really true. It's not like retirement. It's more like a lifetime achievement award, which is really kind of neat that they recognize so many people for all those contributions. A little bit more about myself. I lead the Evansville, Indiana Salesforce user group. I've been doing that since 2010. I founded Midwest Dreamin', one of the earliest and longest running Salesforce community-led conferences. That will be live and in person this year in Minneapolis in July, the 20th through the 22nd. And I guess that's enough about me. A little bit more about Mogli. We're a Salesforce.org and a Salesforce ISV partner and a member of the Pledge 1% organization. So we certainly do our part to try to give back to local communities as well. So how did Mogli get started? Our founder was helping an organization called Nuru International and trying to help them with their fight to end extreme poverty by helping to end hunger. And they were doing that through communications with farmers in rural Africa in the Kenya area to begin with. And the whole goal was Nuru needed some way of communicating with these farmers. They were living in super rural areas, very little access to any modern conveniences. I mean, they had enough electricity that they could charge a cell phone, and they had cell phones, the little flip phones back then. But that was really it as far as modern conveniences. No running water. They were living in mud huts. I mean, so it was very, very much a third world country. But the goal was, let's see what we can do to help farmers protect their crops from disease and bad weather, and try to provide more food for people in the area to end hunger. So Steven Simic, our founder, built this one-way messaging app that allowed Nuber International to push messages out to these farmers that warned them of impending weather issues or crop disease that certain other farmers may have been facing, so that they could take necessary precautions to protect their own crops to try to maintain a good yield on the farms. Over the years, Mogli built up from there and became what it is today, which is basically a very powerful messaging app native to Salesforce. You can do two-way messaging in it. You can handle surveys, automations, any of that through SMS and WhatsApp. And we also handle multimedia messaging, MMS, as well. So clients of Mogli use it for individual and bulk messaging. And a lot of them do surveys and things like intake forms for events, perhaps, or maybe like some of our commercial clients are attorneys, and they'll use the survey process for intake forms to gather some basic information from the clients when they're getting ready to take on a new case. And because it's native to Salesforce, you can build in automations using Salesforce technology based upon the responses to these questions and the surveys that are out there, and other things that happen on the particular context within the records of Salesforce. So why text messaging? Why not email, right? Well, probably 99% of you, I'm guessing every single person in this room has a cell phone sitting on their desk next to them, or in their pockets, or sitting on the table behind them. Here in the US, like 99% of people have a cell phone, and out of those that have one, 97% use some form of a text messaging app every day. So you hit a lot of people if you utilize text messaging. They're very common these days. And on average, the response rates that you get from text messages, and that this is from industry surveys, businesses tend to get roughly a 98% open rate and about a 45% response rate to text messages to clients and customers. And generally those responses take place anywhere from about 30 seconds to 3 to 4 minutes after the text has been sent. And comparing that to an average email campaign, the results are around 7 times better than email marketing campaigns. So obviously your message is getting seen by a lot more people, getting responded to by a lot more people, which is the whole goal from a company perspective and an organization. You want to send messages out. You want your clients, your constituents, your customers to interact with you. So some of the ways that Mogli clients use us, again, like I said, one-on-one text messaging, segmented bulk messaging, personalized through the use of merge fields within Salesforce, surveys and inbound forms for marketing, feedback, data collection, you name it. We also have a partnership with an organization called IATS, where we have a text to pay service that we call Mogli Pay. So we can set that up and configure it for nonprofit organizations, for example, to use at an event where they'll put up on a screen where they're talking about some things where they can say, text this keyword to this number to make a $10 donation or something along those lines. And that's handled through Mogli Pay and the IATS collaboration. And then we also have functionality through WhatsApp to allow us to go broader than just the US to international audiences as well. Some of the clients that Mogli has and has had over the years, as you can see on the screen, a lot of these are nonprofit organizations and higher education. That's kind of where Mogli got started, was with the nonprofit space. Higher ed seems to be really a big business for us. Colleges and universities really like the power that it has to be able to communicate important information to their students, whether it's on the recruiting side of trying to get new students or keeping current students abreast of things that are going on campus. It's a pretty good chunk of our business at this moment is the higher education world. And one of the reasons I think that that's probably so true, one of the other studies that I've seen recently that actually dates all the way back to 2014 indicated back then that college students spent about an average of 95 minutes a day on text messaging back in 2014. So that's 8 years ago now. think about what that 90 minutes would look like today. And with today's college students, it's probably more like 3 hours, 4 hours. I can just very easily picture college students sitting in class and not paying attention to class and paying attention to their phones and texting a lot. So they're active, certainly, and that's the best place to meet your customers and your clients, is where they want to be. So text messaging makes a lot of sense in that particular case. The big name, of course, that we as Mogli like to point out as one of our clients is Salesforce. They've been using us since around 2019 for some internal polling and getting feedback on some things that they're doing. Some of the awards we've won over the years. We are the 2021 Salesforce.org Higher Education ISV of the Year. We have won demo jams all over the place. Dreamforce 2019, Midwest Dreamin' 2019, several other community-led conferences through over the course of probably 2018 through this year. We have a pretty good collection of demo jam trophies on our shelf, and we're super proud of that, because the demo jams are certainly exciting for the audience and competitive for the partners that are participating. And it's really a great way of showcasing your app to a lot of people in a very short period of time. That's it for the slides. We'll go through some things here on the demo. And if you want to try to participate on your own, you're welcome to grab your cell phone, text the word customer to the numbers here on the screen, which of course you won't be able to see in just a second because I'm going to switch windows and do the demo. You don't need to do this on your own because you'll see it on the screen anyway. I'll be demoing the same thing. So bear with me 1 second and I will get us rolling on the demo. All right, I assume you're still seeing my screen, correct? Since I think I shared the whole screen.
Yes, we are seeing your Salesforce screen.
Okay, perfect. Are you also seeing the Google Voice off to the right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Great. Then, and the reason Google Voice is here is simply to demonstrate the text messaging back and forth. So the Google Voice is the individual we as an organization are going to be having this conversation with, and then everything inside the Salesforce window here, that's us as the organization. So the first thing I want to point out within the Salesforce window, the section here on the right hand side, kind of centered on your screen where you see the black and the red backgrounds, that is the text messaging conversations between this company and this individual. And what you see in this window as I just scroll through, that's the last 300 pieces of the conversation, the inbound and the outbound. The ones that are highlighted in red is Mogli talking to the customer, and then the ones that are black is the customer talking back to Mogli. So the next thing that's important to point out here on screen is obviously to have a text message conversation with someone, you need a phone number. And so the field, this field here is the mobile phone number, and right below it you see there's a field that we call the Mogli number. If you look at them carefully, they're the same phone number. The only difference is the punctuation is different. On the Mogli number, it's the +1 for the country code and then the digits of the phone number, as opposed to the mobile number. That's the standard United States formatted telephone number with the brackets and the dash in the middle. There's a flow that runs behind the scenes once you input the mobile number here in Mogli that creates this Mogli number. And the Mogli number is important because that's the primary key, the identifier that we use, so we within Mogli know who we're texting with. So that number becomes the key field, the important field that we use to identify who we're chatting with. The other important thing to point out, this right below there, you see this Mogli opt-out. Right now, this box is unchecked, which means this person has opted in to text conversations, and that's important. Just like email, there are laws protecting consumers from being spammed. That still applies to text messaging as well. So you have to make sure you have someone's permission to send them text messages. That can be done in a couple of different ways. You can contact them through an email and say something along the lines of, in the email, text this keyword to this number if you wish to receive text messages or to start a survey or whatever, and them responding that way and starting a text conversation is kind of like implied consent. So Mogli usually recommends that the first response back to a customer when they text into you like that, we always recommend that your first thing is a question to them. Do you consent to receiving 3 texts a week, 1 text a month, whatever kind of frequency that you want from us, yes or no, and let them reply yes or no. If they reply yes, you're good to go. If they reply no, we build in functionality within Mogli that will automatically check this opt-out box and save the record so that it's flagged in the system that says, sorry, this person does not want to receive text messages. And what you see on the screen here now is this orange warning. This record is opted out of SMS messages. And these boxes down here that used to be available, they're now grayed out. So now I can't even click on here and accidentally type and send this person a text because they've opted out. Now, for demo purposes, it's going to be hard to demonstrate Mogli with them opted out. So we're going to opt this person back in. And then the other thing I want to point out on this center screen here is this default gateway. There are things available within Mogli where you can send text messages through a standard 10-digit phone number, or if you want to or need to send bulk messages out to anywhere over roughly 100 people at a time, we strongly recommend you use a high throughput toll-free number or a short code as opposed to a standard 10-digit number, because generally speaking, the cell phone carriers like Verizon and AT&T and Sprint and all the others, if you send a text message through a standard 10-digit phone number to roughly 100 people or more, most of those carriers are going to grab a hold of that and say this person's trying to spam text. So they flag that as spam. They flag your number as spam. You don't know that that's happening. You still think your messages are delivered, which is bad from your perspective because you don't know anybody's getting them. You get 0 responses. You don't get any feedback, and then maybe you send another text later. Well, by that point, the carrier has flagged you as spam, and your messages won't even be delivered going forward. So if you know you're going to be texting large quantities of numbers, it's best not to use the standard 10-digit number and to use a short code or a high throughput toll-free number. And Mogli has the ability to let you select how you want to send those messages. So let's go through a very brief demonstration of what Mogli actually looks like now. So in the Mogli window here in the center of your screen, we have the ability to simply just type in text messages in a one-on-one conversation, and I'll do that and we'll see what happens. Hopefully the Google Voice will behave, and we'll see that pop up here on the right-hand side of the screen just shortly. Sometimes that takes a little while. Sometimes it's crazy slow. And I don't see it yet. There we go. So now we see the hello. And of course, if this person decides to type back or misspell it in my case, there, now you know it's a live demo. We'll see that pop back up over here on the Mogli side shortly as well. So a couple things to point out besides just the free-form text message here. We do have the ability to schedule text messages. So you can pick a date, pick a time, and send a message. Scheduled because you certainly don't want to text somebody at 3 o'clock in the morning unless you know that that's their standard working hours. It's not pleasant for businesses to be texting individuals, customers, whatever, at times that are generally speaking considered bad times to talk to them. You do have the ability as well to grab a hold of pre-configured templates and text the templates to those individuals. And I'm going to grab a hold of this template here that we call email confirmation. And what you see here is that the body of the text says, hi, first name, is your email still email? Those are merge fields from within Salesforce. I'm sure most of you recognize that. They're coming off of this contact record where we're sitting. So we'll send that off. And what you're going to see is, hi, Eric, is your email still eric@mogli.com? And there we go. That was received. So now let's pretend we're the Mogli employee here, whoever this is that's texting, and we've got some work to do. So we're going to go over here and we're going to look at a dashboard. We're off busy doing our work. And suddenly Eric here responds back and says, yes, that's my email. Well, how do you know that they've responded? You're busy doing other things, right? Assuming our demo org is going to work properly, there should be an audible chime. And assuming I'm connected to to the meeting properly, maybe you'll hear it. Or maybe the demo org is not going to behave because I didn't hear it yet myself. Occasionally that happens. We use this demo org for a lot of things, for some development of things as well. But once that message comes in, like I said, there's usually an audible chime, and then this Mogli notifications box down here in the lower left corner will start blinking. And for some reason it's not. So once again, you know this is a live demo, but should this happen correctly, and I don't know why it's not coming back through. Maybe it's just Mogli or Google Voice not behaving properly today. But anyway, once this notification would be blinking, this response from Eric over here where it says yes would be in this window right here where it says you're up to date. You could simply click on that link and on that response, and it would take us right back into the contact record and right into that conversation. So now we're going to have to go through that the old-fashioned way to get there. And now you can see his response back, yes, that's my email. So that's kind of the basic one-to-one text messaging utilizing a merge field as well. I think we've had a couple questions here in the chat. Can we create macros and use them in Mogli? And by macros, I assume you're referring to some sort of automation based upon responses to texts. If that's the question, Anki, that's correct. That is very possible.
No, actually, I was referring to kind of templates which you mentioned. So at the time, you didn't talk about templates. So this question is answered. The next question I have is like, normally in the SMS, like whenever an SMS is sent, we receive like whether the message was delivered or not. We get means we have a confirmation coming in. And also, do we have, and one more question I have is like, do we know, like, suppose a kind of the person has read the message, that kind of acknowledgement are we able to get?
Unfortunately, the acknowledgement that somebody has read the message is really dependent on the carrier, and that's something that we don't get back into Mogli. Unfortunately, the only time we know they've really read it is if they respond. So
okay.
All right, so let's move on to our survey functionality, and that was kind of what I showed on the PowerPoint earlier. Let's see if it'll work here. So in that case, we told someone to text the word customer. I guess I should spell it correctly. Text the word customer into this phone number, and that will launch a survey. And again, you should be able to see it kicking off in the Mogli window here, as well as the responses coming over on the Google Voice side of things, hopefully. And maybe it's not going to work today. That's just weird. Yep, it seems like we're having some difficulties with the Google Voice and the demo org today. All right, so we'll kind of just, oh, there. Wow, that was slow. Anyway, there we go. Now you can see it. I still don't see it over here for whatever reason. I'm not sure what's going on with that, but what you see, the keyword customer launched this survey. Thanks for contacting Mogli today. On a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being terrible, 5 being amazing, how would you rate your experience? Well, Mogli prides themselves on having a 5-star customer experience, so we're gonna say service was amazing. We're gonna give it a 5. At some point, Mogli and Google Voice will respond back with some sort of message that indicates we know 5 is fantastic and we're glad you had a wonderful experience with us. And then it'll ask another question. And now we wait for everything to hopefully catch up to us. There we go. Glad to hear it was a good experience. Was the representative able to resolve your issue? Yes or no? Well, we know people don't always follow directions, or we know people like to reply with other things occasionally. So maybe the person doesn't like the word yes. They want to respond with a thumbs up, or the word yep or yeah. So we'll see how that behaves. What should happen is, because of the way we've configured Mogli on this particular Salesforce org, is that it's going to respond and realize yeah equals the same thing as yes. This is what Mogli refers to as business intelligence. So within Salesforce, you have the ability to predefine responses that you accept as equaling yes or no, or in the case of the 1 to 5 question up here, they could have typed the word 5 instead of the number 5. It would be acceptable as well and would have provided the same response and same feedback. So here we go. We're at the end of our survey. That's great news. Anything else we can do to improve your experience in the future? And this is just a free form text here. It'll respond with the same thing regardless of what you say here. And I'm just going to say no thanks. No thanks. And what we'll see here is one more response from Mogli that comes back and basically says, thanks for participating in our survey. And I think it even offers a bonus little discount code for your next Mogli purchase. So that's the basics of surveys and the functionality there. So let's see. The other thing that I wanted to briefly showcase. Oh, one thing, you know what? I did forget to mention one thing. This box here with the red and black, that houses the last 300 messages, as I indicated earlier. But now some of you may be wondering what happens to all the other messages. You may have conversations going on with some of your customers for years, and your messages may be thousands. Those are all stored in a custom object within Salesforce in this SMS object. And so you can see the various conversations. You see the back and forth. You'll see the inbound, the outbound. I mean, here's your column. Which direction was it going? Incoming, outgoing. So based upon this data existing in an object, you can then report on this. So if you're doing customer satisfaction surveys through Mogli, for example, you'll have the ability to report on the number of times people responded with a 5 versus a 4 versus a 3, and build your own net promoter score off of that, essentially. Oh, and now you can see my Mogli notifications box here is finally blinking. It's caught up to us. So we'll click onto that. Oh, and look, that's even an old one. That's a notification from a couple days ago. So our demo org is really having some issues today, but just to show you what happens when you saw that blinking, I'll go ahead and click on this as I tried to talk through it earlier, and it brings us right back to the record and to the conversation where this took place. Now you don't see the yesterday, it's gone from the notifications. I don't actually see it here because that was from a few days ago. If I scroll back up far enough, it should be in here somewhere. There it is right there. So there's a delayed response and a slightly improved version of the demo from what we tried a minute ago that didn't work. So the other functionality within Mogli is the ability to message multiple people at a time, as I talked about briefly at the beginning. There are multiple ways of doing that. You can do it through a report, through a list view, or through a campaign. And the limitations as to the number of individuals that you can message at one time varies based upon those three. Reports is about 200 people, list view is around 2,000, and then campaigns, we've had clients hit as many as 50,000 individuals at one time through campaigns. Excuse me. And the way that functionality works on this screen here, you can select your recipient. I'll grab a hold of this 500 contacts campaign, and it throws all the numbers in over here onto the recipients. And of course, they're all the same just for this demo purpose. And what you see here is the warning. You've selected more than 100 recipients. Due to carrier restrictions, we recommend using an intelligent route, short code, or toll-free gateway. That's the phone number method that's the messages are going to be sent from. And that's something that's selectable right here within Mogli. Down here on the send from at the very bottom of the screen right now, you see it says default. We can choose to have it come out through any other configured number here that we need, and get around that 100 limit roughly on the spam thing. But what you also see up here at the top, it says total number of displayed recipients is 195. Total number of recipients is 494. So if, for example, we're here and we wanted to, we thought, oh, you know what? I want to send it to one more person. I forgot somebody. So let's just add their phone number in here. I think that's the right number of digits. And what we should see, this now jumps by 1. So you have the ability to add people on the fly to your message. Of course, you can still use the message templates like we used and demonstrated on the one-to-one messaging. You can still create free-form text, use merge fields that are available to you. And of course, just like the others, you can schedule the send to go out at a given time. I'm not actually going to hit send on this one because this would probably have some strange results with valid phone numbers or not. But that's the basics of bulk messaging as well. Pretty similar functionality to the one-on-one conversations, but just having the ability to personalize those messages to multiple individuals at a time. And that's about it on the Mogli side of things. I did not have another slide even beyond that. So any additional questions at the moment regarding functionality or use cases with Mogli?
That was awesome, Eric. Anyone wants to ask any questions regarding Mogli?
Hey, Eric,
Eric,
go ahead, whoever's asking first.
Sorry, I didn't mean to step on you. Eric, I was going to ask, I mean, by the way, great demo, looks awesome. In what I'm trying to understand in my head is, what does Mogli provide above and beyond the native Salesforce SMS functionality via Omni? Right, SMS, you can do SMS with natively. So where does Mogli come in?
Yeah, so I mean, I think probably the bigger benefits for utilizing Mogli is around the automations and the abilities you have to customize what happens within Salesforce based upon those messages. And in some cases you can trigger text messages based upon other activity that's going on in your Salesforce org. For example, sales reps go in and modify data on an object, on an opportunity. For example, maybe they flag an opportunity as now being 95% chance it's going to close. The probability has super increased, and you want to trigger a text message to your boss, for example, or something like that. I mean, all of that, those are things that you can do through Salesforce automations, utilizing the data that Mogli provides as well through texting.
Okay, that's helpful, Eric. I'm seeing this more from a bulk messaging perspective. I think this would be helpful, like in a utility space, maybe, where, I don't know, for lack of a good example, PG&E, they want to blast out to thousands of customers. Would that be a good use case for Mogli?
Yeah, like in the case of California having the rolling blackouts every once in a while, the utility company could certainly send a text message out to all the customers that are going to be involved or affected by that, hopefully in advance of it happening, to warn them that it's going to happen so they're not surprised. I know my local utility company here actually has text messaging available through their product. And when power goes out at our house, we have the ability to text into them that our power's out, and then they will text back to us when they've determined the power has been restored. In case we're not home at the time, we'll still know we have power on back when we get home. So that is a pretty good use case.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure thing.
I have a question on the campaigns that you
Yes.
had. Like on the campaigns, can you just set up as a one campaign at a time? Like if I want to set up, like, say, 5 different messages to be sent to the same person, or like on a daily basis, like 9 a.m. every day, whatever it is, the time is. So can I just bulk load it beforehand? All it's like 30, like for the, let's say for next 1 week, the whole campaign's like a bulk upload.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can certainly do that, and just simply that would simply be accomplished by I mean, you build everything into Mogli, you create your templates, and then you just simply schedule each of those text messages for 9 o'clock today, tomorrow, Monday, Tuesday, whenever you want, and have them. They would go out in the sequence that you define.
The bad thing is, like, do I need to do, like, is there any bulk upload feature too? Because we were trying to do some use case at our nonprofit. It's like a, hey, random act of kindness thing. If somebody signs up for a campaign, over the next 15 days, a message goes to them on a daily basis, right? So I would like to have all the 15 to 30 messages all uploaded because I don't want to set up like 15 times one by one. So can you just show it to me on your on your demo thing? How would that work? If you can upload like the whole bulk messages there.
The templates, is that where you're?
Yeah, template is like, it's not, see, template is one by one I can create, that's fine. I can have on a daily, I can put one bulk message today, I can go one by one. Is it ability like in an Excel file or whatever it is, I can just upload it?
Oh, sorry. Now I got you. I understand your question now. And I unfortunately I don't know the answer to that, but
Okay.
let me jot myself a note down, and I will find that out from one of our product experts.
Yeah, we used Twilio, and Twilio had that functionality, but we did the upload, but it did not work. The timing was kind of getting messed up on that one.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, so that's, I just want to see if you have the ability to do that.
Yeah, and I don't know that, but I will find out and we'll get back to you on that one.
And also you brought a nice point on the, and you said the, typically the cell phone companies would flag you if you have more than 100 messages, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
And okay. And the short codes are basically, and the short, otherwise, what's the pricing on the short codes wise? Like, I know that's nothing to like, it's a separate thing that.
Yeah. So pricing from the Mogli perspective, we offer unlimited users on our pricing. We have 4 different packages based upon the number of messages you expect to send annually, the number of phone numbers you need to be sending from, and then above and beyond that, the price increases to a different package based upon additional features. For things like short codes or toll-free, high throughput toll-free numbers, there's a flat fee that Mogli charges for each of those. I'm not sure if that's detailed on
No, but that's good enough. Like for
our
now,
pricing
like,
page.
Okay.
But yeah, so yeah, let me throw the pricing page, the link into the chat, and then you all could just take a peek at that. And we do also offer discount pricing for nonprofits as well.
Yeah, because we were looking at Twilio, because Twilio is a base for most of text at the back end.
Yeah.
The app is kind of like, it has similar kind of functionality that you showed, but the short codes I was not sure of, kind of thing.
So the link I just put in there is the commercial pricing.
Got it.
Trying to find the nonprofit one. There we go. I had an extra character in it, so let me throw the nonprofit pricing page out there as well.
Right.
There you go. So that also, those pages also explain all the various features and detail out each of the packages and what's available in them as well. So
excellent. That's great. Should we open the floor for the Fireside chat, or?
Totally fine with me, unless anyone else has additional Mogli questions. If you do have further questions about Mogli, I'm throwing my email address into the chat as well. Just feel free to shoot me an email and I will get answers back to you.
That's perfect. Yeah. So I can start with the questions, but everyone can also open their mic, and you raise your hand and we can just, you can ask questions from Eric as well. Eric is the one single source of truth here for personal branding and career questions if you have. So my question to you, Eric, how do we become an MVP? And for an aspiring Salesforce MVP, what advice do you have?
That's a fantastic question. And that's a question that us MVPs seem to get pretty often, honestly, is what do you have to do? How do you get there? And there's not really a secret sauce. I don't think there's no clear-cut answer that says you got to follow this specific path. There's not a trail, for example, on Trailhead on how to become an MVP. I think one of the other longtime MVPs, Gary Palmatier, I think was in the very first class of MVPs in 2010 or 2011. He once put it very briefly and very succinctly, and I've loved the way he described it, where someone said to him, how do you become an MVP? And his response was, don't try to become an MVP, just be one. And what he really meant there was, do things for other people, do things that are going to help other people, share your knowledge, offer to have conversations with individuals that are struggling on certain issues, and help them solve their own problems and help them improve. And by doing that, you're being an MVP. Whether you get the title officially or not, that's still another story. The process, the official Salesforce process for becoming an MVP, they open the nominations up once a year. Anybody can nominate anyone to be an MVP. Once the nomination period closes, Salesforce compiles all the data. They give the existing MVPs access to the data, to all the questions and the comments and things that were submitted, with the advice that only give us feedback on people you know personally that you've interacted with. So in other words, don't just read the nomination and say, yeah, that sounds good, let's make this person an MVP. If you've never talked to or interacted with that individual, Salesforce doesn't want us MVPs to provide feedback. They really want the honest, open communication and our opinions on these individuals and why they should be or shouldn't be an MVP. And once us MVPs have done all of that, Salesforce compiles all that again, and feeds that over to certain individuals at Salesforce, some members of management. Probably, I don't know how far up the line it goes in senior leadership, but then Salesforce makes a determination based on all of that feedback, which individuals deserve the title of MVP. Oh, Sheeba, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. So this question is little time bound. Like it's the time of the year when we are, having year-end conversations, etc. So do you think brand the branding, personal branding, etc., can be tweaked to help with the year-end conversations? Any guidance on that?
Yeah, I think personal branding can be utilized year round, but certainly specifically around performance reviews, which are typically done annually, or sales pushes. If you're in sales, you got to get this deal closed, and because the quarter's up or the year's up and you want to make your quota. I think personal branding can certainly impact those things as well, based upon situations and timing and what it is you're doing that's helping grow your personal brand, the things that you as an individual and your company perhaps stands for and supports, that might influence others to want to do business with you. Take Salesforce, for example, and the 1-1-1 model that they talk about all the time, with giving 1% of their time, efforts, and product away to nonprofit organizations. Something along those lines is super beneficial. Obviously, it helps other organizations to be able to utilize Salesforce and that technology to do more of what they are trying to do in the world to make a bigger impact. And all of those things can certainly impact business as well. I mean, Benioff, I think, says something along the lines of businesses are the greatest platform for change, or something to that effect. Can't remember his exact quote, but I really believe that that's true.
Okay, thanks so much. I'll ask others to participate. Please open your mics and you can ask a question on personal branding or career growth.
And they're definitely related, in my opinion. I feel like the personal branding I've built over the years has been responsible for my career and the trajectory that it's seen and the growth I've seen. Been in the Salesforce ecosystem since 2009, so I'm going on close to 13 years now. And during that time period, my salary has tripled. And I don't feel like that's just simply by changing jobs. I think it has to do a lot more with my reputation in the community and the things that I've accomplished. and the value that that companies know that I'm going to be able to bring to their organization.
Right. What kind of ideal reputation or viewpoint you should project to your employers for career growth?
You know, I think there's a couple of key factors really that play into that. Certainly, probably the biggest one would be integrity. You know, act responsibly, treat people with respect, do the things you say you're going to do during the times you say you're going to do them. That all builds credibility and helps create a great reputation for you, which then translates to your company that you're working with. If the negative version of that translation would be guilt by association, but this is the positive version of that. I see a question in the chat from Prakash. Just out of curiosity, why the name of this app is Mogli? I know it relates to mobile, global, and impact, but is it inspired from the character Mogli? That's a fantastic question. And no, it's not from the character Mogli. Actually, it is exactly what you said. Mogli stands for mobile, global, impact. And that was because of where the founder got started with the work he did through Nuru International, utilizing mobile technology to make a global impact on world hunger. What's best practice to increase growth in the Salesforce developer career? That's a great question. I'm not a developer myself, but my thoughts on that one would be that continuously learning and improving your skill set and growing your knowledge on a wider, broad range of things that you might see as a developer. I feel like developers certainly need to understand what Salesforce administrators go through in their daily life, because as a developer, you're going to be building products, enhancing features, and whatever developers do to software, you need to be cognizant of how it's going to look and feel on the user end, on the administrator end. So having that appreciation of that side of things is certainly beneficial. I guess that's probably my biggest advice on the developer path. Be aware of the users and keep learning and growing your own skills.
Something related to that, can you talk about your past roles?
Sure.
Yeah.
So when I first got into Salesforce in 2009, I stumbled into a job. It's probably the easiest way to put it. I was working as a call center agent for a software company. So my role was supporting that company's clients through phone calls and remote connections into their system. They weren't using Salesforce at that point in time. And so we would remote connect into their database and fix their problems and help them through new releases and train the clients on things like that. And back then, even this particular company was not a cloud-based company. So new releases meant we'd send a CD through the mail to these companies, and they'd have to put the disk in their computer, follow the steps on the screen, and do the installation process. I worked at that role in that call center for about 9 months. And this was a temporary job for me. It was supposed to initially just be an 8-week job because the company was launching one new software product, and they hired me and 3 other people to help with that rollout during that, what they thought was going to be an 8-week period. The call volume was really light during that 8-week period. So by the time those 8 weeks had come and gone, I was the only person left. Out of those 4 who started then. They still had their regular call center agents, but I was the only person specifically trained on that new product. And they kept me on, and I kept coming in and supporting clients. After those 8 weeks had come and gone, they started training me on all their other software products. So after 6 months or so, I was functioning as a full call center agent, supporting all their clients on all their products, but still as a temporary employee. So I still wondered, would I walk into work today and they'd tell me, I'm sorry, we don't have funding to keep you here anymore. You've got 2 weeks and you're done. And then I get this call from their HR department one day that says, we have a position available in the call center. It's doing exactly what you're doing today, same work, same people, same department, but as a company employee, there's benefits and there's more money. Are you interested? Of course, I was interested. I was looking for a full-time job. I've been looking for a while. At that point in my career, I was actually looking for a permanent full-time role for about 2 years, 2.5 years. And so I said, of course, I'm certainly interested. What do we do? The HR person said, well, there's an interview process. Let me connect you to our vice president and she'll interview for you for this role and we'll take it from there. And I thought, well, okay. I said I interviewed for the job once and I got it. I've been here 6 or 7 months. I've proven myself and I can interview for the job again. I wasn't worried about it. So I get on the phone with this individual who's in their San Diego corporate office and I'm in Evansville, Indiana, where the call center was located. And she says, Eric, I've looked at your performance here as a call center agent, and I know why you're still here. She says you solve our customers quickly and they're happy with the way you do things. And she says, I've reviewed your resume and looked at your previous employment history and the things you've done at the companies you worked at prior to coming here. She says, I really just have one question I want to ask you. And you know, the way my mind worked back then, I kind of panicked. It's like, oh no, one question, a one question job interview. This is gonna be one doozy of a question, you know. And I probably thought to myself, do I want to hear the question and then fail the answer? Or should I just get up and walk away and say, sorry, I don't think this is right for me. But I stayed and listened to the question. And this woman said to me, why are we wasting our time and your time having you support our clients when there's so many other things you can do to help this company move forward? And I reacted with the first thing that I thought of, which was, well, the call center agent position's all you have open. Because I had been looking at that company's website for a long time, hoping a position would be there that I could get into. And her response was, yeah, that's true today, but give me 3 weeks. I'm working on approval for a business analyst role to help us launch Salesforce to the call center you're working in. And I think you've got what it takes to take that job. And my response to that was, what's Salesforce? I've never heard of it. And 3 weeks later, I'm on the job as a business analyst, helping this company roll out Salesforce with no prior Salesforce experience or training. Quite a challenge, quite enjoyable. It was one heck of a ride. And I learned a ton just from doing things. One of the things that my boss told me very early on when I got into that BA role was, go find local community Salesforce user groups in your community, in your area, and meet people that are already using Salesforce. This was 2009. The community was pretty small back then. There were maybe 10 user groups across the United States at that point in time, instead of the several hundred that there are today. And there wasn't one close to me. The closest one that had a meeting coming up anytime in the near future that I could find was in Chicago, which is a 6-hour drive from my house each way. So it would have meant overnight in Chicago rather than 12 hours of driving in one day and a couple hours in a meeting. And I told her I found that, and by this coincidence, the same day that Chicago user group was meeting, there was a Salesforce sponsored event in Chicago. By today's standard, they'd probably call it a world tour. I think back in 2009, they may have called it a city tour or CloudForce event. I don't remember exactly the terminology, but it was that particular event in Chicago, probably had 2,000 people at it. The user group meeting maybe had 100 people at it. And I attended both of those. So I was up in Chicago an entire day, drinking from the fire hose, learning all I could about Salesforce and the partners that were at this world tour event, and just meeting a ton of people and learning as much as I could about Salesforce super quickly. And that was kind of like that little push of the small snowball going down the hill. And as it rolled down the hill, it just kept getting bigger and bigger and picking up more speed. I still haven't come to the bottom of that hill. I'm still rolling down the hill and gaining speed and growing. And that's kind of how I started in Salesforce from there. Once we launched the Service Cloud at that organization, my role shifted more into being a reporting analyst. So I spent my days building reports and dashboards for that company so that call center management would understand what was happening in the call center. how many calls were the agents taking? How quickly were they resolving them? Were the customers happy? What exactly were the problems that were being resolved so that they could figure out software bugs or training issues that needed to be created to resolve those proactively going forward. Was a lot of fun, and quite a challenge, obviously, to say the least. I spent probably the first, I don't know, 6-7 months on that job, going to a user group meeting somewhere in the Midwest once a month, and really started building a network of people that I knew within Salesforce. And at that point, I kind of thought, this is really silly of me driving all over the place to go to all these user group meetings. I wonder what it takes to start a user group in my area. So I found somebody at Salesforce to ask that question to. I know my wording was, hey, what's it take for you to start a group in my city? I mean, for Salesforce to create a user group in my city is what I was trying to say. And the response I got back was, hey, congratulations, thanks for volunteering to lead a user group. And I kind of laughed at that. I thought, I'm the wrong person to lead this group around Salesforce because I know virtually nothing about Salesforce and I need to learn everything. It's like, I am the wrong person because I don't know anything. Well, she and I had a few more conversations over the next week or two, and she convinced me that maybe I'm the right person to lead this group because I was so hungry for the knowledge. So I launched a local user group. 5 people showed up to this first meeting. Those same 5 people still come to the meetings every time I hold them, along with anywhere between another 15 and 50, depending on the topic and the timing of the meeting. And of course, pre-COVID or post-COVID, or during COVID, I suppose we're still there. We've had visitors from all around the world to my meetings occasionally. The in-person meetings, when we had them regularly, I would see people from cities 2-3 hours away as well who would drive in for the meetings. And from there, my next role was with another company, helping them launch the Service Cloud and the Sales Cloud and taking a reporting analytics kind of position again. And then after that, I flipped into roles on the partner side, working for different ISVs, all in the marketing area. And that really started simply by seeing a demo of a product at Dreamforce one year from one of these partners. I saw this product that they had that I just fell in love with and immediately started imagining all these great use cases for this particular product. I was never a customer of this company, but I decided the moment that I saw them demoing this thing and that all these amazing use cases came to mind, I said, I want to work for this company. So I started a conversation with the company about, what can I do to come work for you? And the standard HR conversations, we'll look at our website, find the job you're interested in and apply. We'll have some interviews. And we did that for a while. And there wasn't a position that really tugged at my heartstrings the right way, that felt like it was me. And finally, after probably 6 or 7 months of those conversations with recruiters and their HR team, one of their HR team members finally said, you know what, Eric, this isn't working. We don't have a position available for you that fits what you want to do, but we understand you really want to work here. So what do you want to do for us? Tell us what your ideal job looks like. And so I did. I said, the stuff I'm good at in Salesforce is reporting and analytics. The stuff I'm super passionate about is sharing knowledge and connecting people with questions to people with answers. And I love this product, and I think there's tons of amazing use cases that you could get your customers to purchase the product for. And then I basically said, if you can figure out a way to tie all that together into a job, pay me a reasonable salary, let's talk some more. And a couple of months later, I get a call from their marketing department. Hey, we have a job for you. We'd like to talk to you about this new role we're creating as a product evangelist to help us evangelize this product that you wanted to talk about, that you fell in love with just by seeing the demo. And I think that's when I realized I had built a personal brand, because part of the reason they wanted me for what I told them I wanted to do, and is because I had built a user group by then. I had built Midwest Rehman by then. The VP of marketing at that company was a speaker at Midwest Rehman the prior year. So she and I met earlier and had some conversations back then. And I think that whole combination of everything I had done career-wise and community-wise kind of all tied together and became that role at that company as a product evangelist. Was at that organization for about 4 years. The job changed quite a bit over the 4 years. The company changed quite a bit over those same 4 years. Not always in a good way. You know, sometimes things happen at organizations that aren't pleasant, and you decide it's time to move on, and that's what happened with me. But from that point forward, every job that I've had within Salesforce, the ecosystem, hasn't come from me looking for a job. It's come from me just having conversations with people about how can I help your organization do better. And that ultimately is what led me to Mogli as well. And the role I first started talking to Mogli about isn't the one that I'm in. I had been at a company called Active Campaign about 1.5 years ago, and about 2 months into that job, as a partner marketing manager for managing their relationship with Salesforce, I spotted a job post from Mogli, I knew Mogli from Midwest Reinvent from 2017, 2018 already. And I saw Mogli had posted this position that was a partner alliance manager job to help manage Mogli's relationship with Salesforce. And I thought that would be a fun job, but I was 2 months into a new job that I was at that point enjoying. So I thought, well, timing's bad. So I sent a message to Rob, the chief revenue officer at Mogli, and I said, hey, saw your partner alliance manager role. Thought I'd tell you that's a cool position and I wish you luck filling it. If I wasn't just 2 months into a new job, you and I would be talking about that position. And his response was, well, tell us when you're ready to talk. And fast forward about 1 year, life at Active Campaign was challenging, and things weren't going the way I expected them to. They didn't feel as invested in the Salesforce ecosystem as I thought they needed to be for my job to be successful. So I started contemplating a change again, and just coincidentally happened to notice Mogli posting that same job, re-advertising the position, which made me think they hired somebody and it didn't work, or maybe they never filled the job. So I applied for the job online that time. And then I sent Rob a message again that said, hey, Rob, just filled out your online application for your partner alliance manager position and thought I'd let you know I'm ready for a conversation. And Rob's response was, I'm having HR pull your file right now. She's going to call you in a few minutes and set up an interview for next week. Following week, I get on a phone call with Rob, the chief revenue officer, and Steven, their CEO. And we're talking about the role and talking about me and what I've done in the past and all that other things, and the relationship between me and Mogli through Midwest Riemann. And they come back to me and they say, you know what, we want you as an employee. We see the value in you coming to work for us. But this partner alliance manager role where you're managing the company's relationship with Salesforce, the company, isn't the right job for you. He said, we want you in a product evangelist role, managing Mogli's relationship with Salesforce, the community. And I thought about that for probably a nanosecond and realized that was my ideal job. That was my dream job. That was what I really wanted to do, because it married all of my skills and my passions together in a position. Because Mogli's a Colorado-based company, they did say, you know, we have to advertise this position locally and internally before we post it externally. I spent the next 2 weeks with Mogli actually building the job description and the metrics I was going to be measured on, because they had no clue what a product evangelist role really should look like, and I've been in one before. So they relied on my expertise to tell them, here's what I can do, here's why I can do it, here's how you should measure me on the performance of all these things. And then they built this job description, posted it internally, and probably 10 minutes after they posted it internally, I get an email from Mogli with a job offer. And at some point before the offer came in, Steven, their CEO, told me, he said, don't worry about that posting internally thing. He said, that's a formality. He said, there's nobody at this company that's going to want the position, and nobody who's going to be as remotely qualified as you are based upon the way we've written the description. The company was really small back then. I laugh at that. That was 5 or 6 months ago now. It still feels just like yesterday. There were 25 or 26 people on working for Mogli at that point in time, and they had 5 or 6 open jobs back then. I think now we're at 31 people with maybe 10 open jobs, still somewhere around there. So we're small, we're growing fast, but I'm having a blast. I mean, doing this job, I mean, talking to you right now is part of my job, and I thoroughly enjoy that, and it's just amazing to be able to share that and to motivate people, to let them know the Salesforce ecosystem has so much to offer. You can literally do whatever you want for whatever company you want. All you got to do is put your mind to it and have the right conversations.
Eric, hi, this is Yumi.
Hello.
Hi, thank you so much for sharing.
Sure.
I hope it's related. I feel like it's a related question, but hearing your amazing journey and you know, it's like you came in at the right time, whatever you were thinking, somebody picked up on that energy and was like, yes, we got to get this guy in those really opportune times.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a little bit of negotiation happening, right?
Of course.
Right. How do you balance that with your personal branding? You know what you're good at. I think some of us are trying to discover, but how did you do that? Of being able to negotiate a really a salary that reflected your gifts, your talents, that really valued your time, as well as spoke to, you know, your personal brand. Because
Yeah,
I think that's going to be hard for me.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. That really is. And there's a couple of different approaches, I suppose, to that. I mean, the personal brand, if you think about who you are as a person and what you stand for and what makes up all the things that are uniquely you, some of that includes what you do professionally. Some of that includes the things that you just do, generally speaking, out in the community. In my case, like Midwest Dreamin' and the user group, for example. And figuring out how to marry all that stuff together is tough. There's a time aspect, needless to say, to how do you maintain the personal brand while you do the professional work. And you know, I half jokingly tell people I gladly give up sleep to have conversations with community members. I only say half joking because it's probably more true than it isn't. I have been in conversations and presenting to user group meetings in India when it's been 11:30 p.m. my time and 11 a.m. their time because that's when they hold their meetings. And I jump on the call with them at what's convenient for them. So there's a little bit of sacrifice, I suppose, involved in that to help grow your brand and to help people realize what it is you're all about and the things you stand for. I remember, I think it was Dreamforce 2017. I had been at the first company that hired me into that evangelist role about a year and a half. Midwest Dreamin' had been going strong for a few years by then. And I get an email from Peter Coffey of Salesforce, who tells me he's going to talk about community-led conferences like Midwest Dreamin' and a few others during the opening to the partner keynote where he was talking. And he asked me, he said, how do you want me to represent you? He said, you have this great personal brand. You're very clearly associated with the company you're working for. And then you also have all of your work with Midwest Dreamin'. And Peter said, should I separate all those pieces of your personal brand into separate things? Or how do you want me to represent you and your brand? And I thought, well, that's a really awesome question. And I thought, and coming from Peter Coffey, it's pretty amazing. I mean, it was the level of respect I have with Peter is just fantastic. And for him to take the time out of his busy day to ask me, how do you want me to represent you in front of an audience? I just thought was amazing. But it made me think really hard about what is it that really makes up me and my personal brand. And at that point, I came to the conclusion that it's all of that stuff. It's the work I do for Project Night Night as a nonprofit and fundraising for them. It's Midwest Dreamin', it's the user group locally, it's the company I work for. All of that stuff makes up bits and pieces of who I am. I mean, you can see today I'm wearing a Mogli t-shirt because I'm representing Mogli as part of this presentation. So what I told Peter was, lump it all together, talk about it all in the same sentence if you want. I said, all of that makes up who I am. All of it is part of what caused me to go down the path that I've gone down to become who I am. So lump it all together. It's all part of who I am. It's all my personal brand. I don't know if that really helped answer your question. I hope. If nothing else, maybe it gave you a little bit more to think about.
No, that was fantastic. Thank you. And I guess my follow-up to that would be, as you bring yourself fully to these interactions, especially when you're negotiating salary.
Mhm.
How is that journey? Because I find it
Yeah.
fascinating. You tripled your salary. That's
Yeah, that
amazing.
was over the course of years since I've been in the ecosystem. That wasn't overnight for sure. But thinking about salary negotiations, if I think way back to the very first time I ever had a salary negotiation, and this was way, way, way before Salesforce, I had applied for a role at a university and had put a dollar amount on my application that I wanted for my salary, which was a couple $1,000s higher per year than what I was currently making at the time. And when this university decided to make me an offer, the person who would become my boss, her question to me was, I know what you put down on your resume as your salary requirement, but what are you really looking for? She left it open pretty much. And I took the opportunity then to say, well, we'll just use some random numbers. I said, I put 27,000 on my salary requirement, but I'd really like 30. And her response back after a minute or two of silence, and I could hear the adding machine going in the background and her doing calculations. She came back and she said, how's 34,000 sound? And it was like one of those moments that you just remember like it was yesterday. My jaw hit the floor. Obviously, we were only on a phone call at that point in time. My jaw hit the floor. I was like gasping for air because the salary I was actually making at that point in time was only 24,000. So she was offering me a $10,000 increase, which was almost half of what I was making at that point in time, which was like hitting the lottery is kind of how I felt. So that was my first experience with a salary negotiation. And I didn't do anything except say, I'd really love this much. And they came back and said, well, how about more? Really strange. That probably doesn't happen often. But fast forward to the experience with Mogli in particular, when we first started talking salary, what I told them was, here's what I'm currently making. And I was really open about it. Here's the dollar amount my salary currently is. Here's what my benefits package looks like. And by the way, I have a medical plan that covers my family that costs me nothing out of pocket. So I don't have to worry about premiums on a medical plan, which that's pretty unheard of these days, I think. It used to be really common years ago. But that was all part of the conversation. And they originally came back with a salary number that was a little bit higher than what I was currently making. And they provided me with details on their benefits. And what I discovered at that point was, because they don't have the same level of benefits and they're a much smaller organization, they don't subsidize the benefits to the same level as my current employer did. So there was a component of having to pay for medical insurance again that I was going to have to bear through the increase in my salary. And the increase they offered was not going to totally offset the cost of the benefits for me and my family. And what I told them was, I can't sell this job change to my wife if my take-home pay is going to go down. And it wasn't going down just by $20 or $50 a month. It was going to go down by like $1,500 a month. I said, I can't do that. I said, my wife will laugh at me and tell me I'm crazy for even contemplating that, even though the job would make me happier. I mean, because certainly happiness on a job is great, but everybody's got their standard of living that they're used to or that they desire to have. So you have to have a certain level of take-home cash. And so I point blank, I told Mogli, I can't sell that to my wife because it's going to cause my financial hardship. It's going to cause us problems to pay our bills and to live the life we're used to. And they said, okay. So, well, they went back and thought about it for a while. They had some internal conversations, and they came back and said, well, we've built in a variable comp piece to your package that includes bonuses quarterly based upon your performance. And I'm like, great, I understand that. And over the course of the year, those will help even it out. I said, but a quarterly bonus still doesn't pay my bills monthly. That was my selling point again for I need something more monthly. Again, sort of blaming my wife and our finances and the difference in medical cost. And Mogli finally came back and said, okay, how about this? How about we guarantee you the variable comp piece that we've offered, pay it monthly for the first 9 months of your job. And I said, okay, I don't need to talk to my wife on that. I'm not worried about proving my value. And I know after those 9 months, everything's going to be fine. So I'll take the job. So ultimately, they bumped the salary up high enough to totally cover the cost of the benefits package. So I wasn't losing money, and ultimately, after everything was said and done, and I've seen some paychecks, I've got a slight increase in my take-home pay, which, you know, my ultimate goal was to keep it on par. So a slight increase is great, but I'm definitely way happier in this role than I was in the previous one.
Thank you. That was amazing, Eric. Thank you.
Sure.
Akhilesh, do you have a question? Your hand is raised.
Yes. So first of all, Eric, thank you so much for sharing all the insights and the journey.
Of course.
It was very insightful and too much of takeaways to learn from if anyone is aspiring to learn from anyone's journey. My question is in regards to personal branding. Personal branding, what I understand, is very subjective to an individual. What would be some of your key tips or suggestions if one has to be an authentic self, or someone who has to be unique when it comes to building a personal brand as such? As such will be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. And that truly is a valid point, that it is a very unique thing to each individual. And I think to answer that question, what I probably would say is to kind of consider what a brand really is and what it stands for. And from that perspective, you can think about it from companies and from corporations that everybody's familiar with. You know, if you think about Coca-Cola, what comes to mind? You're thirsty, you want to drink. If you think about Starbucks, perhaps maybe you think about good coffee, or maybe you're a Peet's coffee drinker and that's better for you, or Dunkin' Donuts or whatever. But each individual brand for companies conjures up these things in your mind, good or bad, about that organization and why perhaps you want to shop at Target stores versus Walmart stores because of the varying selections or the price or whatever. And if you think about a personal brand in that same way, hopefully that helps you understand what is it that you want people to recognize you for? What are the things that you value, that you stand for, that you help promote, that you're talented in, that should be highlighted as part of your own personal brand, and then figure out ways to go about doing that. There's a whole 45-minute probably talk that I can give on personal brands, but to quickly summarize it, there's like 3 or 4 tips that I usually give people on starting and building a personal brand. To start it, it's simply get over your fears and get out there and do something. Maybe you want to write a blog. I started blogging, I think, back in 2012, and initially it was simply a way for me to take notes on some things I was learning. And I thought, what a safer place than the internet to put these notes. The internet's forever. I'm not going to lose a piece of paper in a file cabinet or throw something away by accident. It's always going to be out there on the internet. So I wrote it up as a blog post and published it. People started reading it. People started commenting on it. People started wondering, hey, when's the next thing you're going to post? So by accidentally keeping notes on a blog, I created a blog site for myself, and people started engaging with me. That may have sort of launched part of my personal brand. So get out there and do something. Whatever it is, maybe blogging's not for you, maybe doing this, maybe speaking at a user group is for you. You've got knowledge, you've done some things on the job that are cool. You built a solution that's amazing. Share that with people. That's another way of getting out there and starting to let people know who you are and what you can do. Once you get to that point, get involved in the community a little more, get out on social media through the Trailblazer community, start sharing your knowledge and your skills in that manner. And what you're going to discover there is the easiest way to grow your brand and to grow your network is to get people to gain trust in you. Be consistent about what you talk about, the way you share knowledge, and the way you interact with people. That'll help your reputation grow and help your brand grow. Probably the third tip, and maybe the last thing that I'll really mention, is I generally compare building a personal brand to the real estate business, because my wife was a real estate agent for a few years. And she always told me there's 2 types of real estate agents. There's the ones that actually work for their business and work for their clients and go find them houses to go look at, or go find buyers for their house that are interested in it. And then there's the kind of agents that take a listing from a customer that wants to sell their house, they blast it out all over the internet and put it in the systems, and then they sit back and wait for a customer to come to them. So, and my wife said, for real estate agents, it's don't be the kind of agent that lists it and forgets it. And the relation back to social media and personal branding on that is, if you post something on Twitter, on the community, wherever it is, if people are engaging in conversations with you around that, don't ignore them. Have a conversation with them, stay engaged. The word of caution I'd throw in there is sometimes people are going to be ugly. Sometimes people are going to be argumentative with you. No, that's not right. I would have done it this way. Don't go into an argument with them. As my wife tells me with the kids every once in a while, choose your arguments carefully. But, take the high road. Hey, thanks for your viewpoint. I never looked at it that way before. It's really interesting. And you're done. They won't come back to you and say, no, I still think you're wrong. They may just simply say, oh, cool, thanks, and move on. So that's kind of my basic tips on creating and building a personal brand.
Thank you so much, Eric. I think that
Sure
was
thing.
helpful, and appreciate all the tips and suggestions you offered.
Absolutely.
Awesome question, Akhilesh, and thanks so much, Eric. It's been awesome guidance. I think everybody's super charged up and ready for career growth and to meet different challenges. Thanks to all your guidance.
Sure.
Okay, now next part of the meeting. Thank you, Eric.
Mhm.
And I'll just move to the next part. So I'm sharing screen for discussing the best practices for flows. Can you all see my screen?
Yep, I can see it.
All right, that's perfect. Gosh, this is, yeah, here. So this is just a list of 10 best practices I put together. So as you know, flow is the future. We have to, that's the only low-code automation tool that's now we admins have, basically. So these first one that I thought about was naming conventions. So this is a little examples of the naming conventions I put together. So we have to, basic guidance is that stick to naming conventions when creating variables and elements in flow. Include the variable description, what you're capturing. A little bit of work upfront will go a long way for future you or someone else that inherits that flow. So just keep it consistent within the flow. So one common naming convention is camel case. So everyone, please, this is led by you as well. So we will bounce ideas off each other. So this is the one that I gathered from the research is that we have to put after or before. So noting these flows can run either before or after a record is saved, since they are automatic and happen without any other action taking place. So we differentiate the naming of them. So based on before or after save of the flows. So like, for instance, before account or after case, and then run by, say, schedule flows. So that's a type of the flow that can run daily, weekly, again, higher on the list since they happen automatic. So run by scheduled flows, even pending event reminders. So this kind of a naming convention, or if it could be object specific. So when you are making changes to a single object, none of the above applies. We start with the object being modified, for instance, case updates. So this is the naming convention list, or we could follow through a business process. So if we are using multiple objects in a flow, then we can be as descriptive as possible in flow naming, like accounting cancellation or downgrade. So that kind of naming convention. And like, so there's primary flow. So we have the object name and then the trigger type. So, and object name, trigger type, or before or after. So we have like account created before, that kind of naming convention. Or we could have subflow stroke, subflow or auto launched. So like object name, subflow, logic description. So account, subflow, update, support plan, that kind of naming convention. Or we could have through, like if it's a screen flow, we can have workflow dash screen. So like update Mogli users and then dash daily, which is a time frame, and then scheduled. And then again, for the variable naming, we also have to follow a convention. So to make this consistency makes it easier to find what you're looking for, but more importantly, knowing what each variable does. So this is so important for someone who's going to inherit the flow from you or for your own future self. So for instance, if you are a record that is a single object, so S object, right? So contact. Are you guys seeing my screen? You are seeing, right? Yeah. So contact, create. And then if it's a collection of records, we can allow for multiple records. Check the allow for multiple records when creating this variable. So for example, sock, contact, create. That could be a naming convention. And then the variable field, this is great for fields that might change or update. So available for input or output, basically a placeholder for you to input the data point, to input a data point you'll use later. So for instance, variable, so if it's a variable field, so we'll just put V underscore contact underscore first underscore name, or, so forth. So then again, constant field, C, user, Andrew Shanks, things like that. So if it's a formula field, just put F and then get CS ID. Or if it's a text template, simply put TT, plain text, body, TT, sales rep, error, things like that. If it's a pick list choice set, we can do PLC. So PLC case status. And this is mainly for screen flows. And then record types, for instance, V, record type, V, RT, case support, or Qs, V, Q, case enterprise. So that was for the naming convention. The next part that I would say is check for null or empty checks. So don't forget to check for null or empty results in decision elements before acting on a set of records. So don't assume a happy path. Think of all possible scenarios. That's another best practice for flows. Then document your flows. This is what an awesome admin would do. So this is like a checklist I made that you could put for documenting your flows. So you could fill in the description field, and then you could state what problem is your flow solving, and then be sure to include what your flow does, the object your flow touches, and where it's invoked from. So for instance, which page layout to use if it's a screen flow, or which process builder process to use if it's an auto-launched flow, etc. So even better, you can even, if you can talk about or mention where this flow hooks into the business process. So, and which group it touches. So the next person can go to them with questions. And then also another best practice would be to have a Jira or story ID linked to link to the flow description. So this is some of the tips for documenting your flows. Next, hard-coded IDs. I think a lot of people know about this, that don't hard-code IDs, because that will means that every time you make a change, you have to go right into the flow and edit that portion. So that would be full of error. It could call for errors. So you should not hard code IDs for things like owner IDs, queue IDs, groups, report type IDs. Do a get for respective object using developer name. So for instance, if it's in the queues, we have the developer name, queue name, web leads. So this is just an example that you could hard code, or you could make a variable of web leads to basically change the lead owner, for instance, a flow scenario. So next, I would say hard coded. Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to append something. Like, okay, I was talking about custom settings metadata. That's fine. You are already explaining. That's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is hard
Thanks.
coded logic. Thank you, Prakash. So don't hard code reference logic in a decision that would change frequently, such as queue IDs, owner IDs, or number. Utilize custom labels and custom metadata. So when you use a hard-coded record ID as an example, you may not work across sandbox pushes. It may not work across the sandbox pushes, or it can be useful when we need to change the value outside of an update to production. So possible solutions would be custom labels, custom settings, custom metadata, and possibly custom object. So if you do this, make sure you have the correct permissions to the object and are thinking about how the possibility of multiple records could affect your flow run. So Prakash, do you have any extra knowledge on this that you would like to share?
No, I was actually talking about this. Like there could be a requirement where you need to specify the exact ID of some user, where like we will have a requirement where we need to specify, we wanted to create a task and assign it to some particular owner. That particular owner is the HR to our organization. So we had a requirement, like we need to hard code the ID for creating a task and giving the ownership to a particular user. For that, we created the custom metadata and did this. So that's how I wanted to explain it, but you already explained it, so that's fine. Yeah. Thank you
Okay,
so much.
excellent. That's
Yeah,
nice to
yeah,
know. Yeah, your use case too. That's great. Thank you for sharing.
yeah.
Okay, so looping
I have
over.
also
Yeah.
I have also shared one official link which Salesforce has said on the best practices, and even one the website has the naming convention thing as well. Link that link is also present in their guide list.
Okay, perfect. Yep. I can't access chat right now, but I am sure of this.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks very much, Ankit. So looping over large data volumes. So don't loop over large collections of records that could trigger the flow element limit. So it's currently 2000. So don't loop over that would hit the governor limits and stuff. So flow is fantastic, but it has its limitations, especially around queries, large data volumes, and working with collections. So you find yourself creating loops upon loops, then more nested loops and hitting the execution limits. So in that case, we'll have to use reusable epics to do some heavy lifting for you. And then excessive, so it's the same. It's basically the same idea that are you stretching the flow performance to the limit? So then in that case, code would be better suited. So there's this automation component library or unofficial SF. We can utilize components from these particular resources instead. Oops, going back. Check record and field security and flow context. So don't assume that your user can see and do everything you designed if you're building a screen flow. You have to test your flows for your intended as well as unintended audience. So that's another best practice. And DML in a loop. So don't DML, like create, update, delete, inside of a loop in an auto-launched flow or record triggered flow. Screen flows are okay if you're 100% sure the scope won't trigger governor limits. So this is another best practice. Flow errors. So that's like what happens if a flow hits an error? Who should be notified? Use fault paths. So these are the considerations we have to think about for the flow errors. And then we want to make sure that when an error happens, someone is aware of it and able to troubleshoot the issue when it happens. At a minimum, make sure you're sending an email notification to someone who can address that issue when it happens. And then use the following. So basically, I created a scenario where you can use a fault and a subflow and stuff like that for error handling. Yeah. So one of the common mistakes an up and coming flow designer makes is not building the fault path. A fault path is designed to handle when a flow encounters an error. And you can tell it what it should do. Think of it as an exception handling. So two most common uses are showing an error screen for the screen-based flows or sending an email alert when containing the error message to a group of people. So I typically like passing off errors to subflows that handle errors for me. That way, if I ever need to change an aspect in the error path, I only do it in one place for all my flows. So that's another best practice. So basically, what are the use cases for using a subflow? It's like it's a reuse. Basically, it's a component that same thing you can use in your flow multiple times. Doing the same thing you do with another flow, call a subflow to do it for you. So these are also called helper classes. And then complex processes or subflows. If your flow involves multiple processes and branching logic, make use of the main flow that launches other secondary flows. So like manage contact data, main screen flow, and then associate contact companies, check contact data, manage contacts, associations, things like that. So permission handling, organizational chaos. Benefits of subflows is that make changes once instead of in 10 different places. And you can take advantage of clean, concise, and organized flows. And you can maintain a single place for org-wide behavior, like sending a consistent error email or showing the same error screen across flows when passing a flow.fault message variable. So considerations with subflows is it's not supported for record triggered flows yet. It requires more collaboration and testing between groups if changes need to be made to subflow. Debugging can be tricky with subflows when you start using Lightning components and Apex actions. You don't always get the detailed errors if an error occurs in a subflow. So there are some UX overhead.
Slight correction on that one, not supported in record triggered flows yet. In the Spring 22, it's like available.
Okay, thanks for correcting that. I will make a note of that. Spring 20.
Sorry, winter 22 only it was available. Sorry, not even summer.
Oh, so it was available and now enforced?
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay. Thank you. I think my documentation maybe slightly needs
Just
update.
link of that one.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, I'll just save this chat. So if for just a quick note, the 3 dots on your chat screen, you can save the chat. Okay. Yep. So thanks for that, Ankit. Yeah, as I said, we need to bounce it off each other because my knowledge and then your knowledge, we all have to work together at it. So
yeah, flows are also evolving too much quickly. So documentation.
Too many developments happening all the time. So we need to combine our knowledge. So automation bypass. So that's another thing. Does your auto launched or record triggered flow have a custom setting or custom metadata based bypass in place? This should always be the first check in the flow to allow it to be turned off for things like data loads. So add a decision element, outcome name is equal to automations disabled, decision logic. So if it's a record, then disable automation is equal to true, or setup, disable automation flow contains object name. Update the default outcome to automations not disabled, right? Then add an extra end element to the automation disabled side of the decision and add the flow logic to the automation not disabled side. Right. Those were the 10 best practices I shared. If anyone has anything from their side that you want to add, please feel free to open your mic or put in the chat.
So yeah, I just wanted to share, or like I just wanted to have a discussion on that. Like when we are talking about LDVs, large data volumes, Salesforce not being able to, or Salesforce flows not being able to work on LDVs, there is a schedule trigger flow which actually works when we create a schedule triggered flow with entry condition and some object. uh, we create it like it is what you want to try, what you want to do for a single record, and then Salesforce bulkified it. So I found it somewhere on the internet, and in the help description of Salesforce official document also, but um, haven't got any idea of how much record, or like when I create a schedule triggered flow and make it for one record, does it handle it in a batches, like will it handle it for all the records that are available which satisfy my entry conditions? So that's again a I would say point of discussion, whether it is available or not. But uh, schedule triggered flow or record triggered flow with the schedule paths are great tool for right now for handling LDVs. So that's again, and the second point is the regarding the flows. So when earlier we were talking about there should be only one flow per object, but now since they've given um, they've given one tool where you can decide or have a decision like which flow will be triggered first and what flows will be triggered second. Flows will be triggered after that, but that's again a controversial, I would say controversial, because in Apex we are doing it one object, trigger per object, but in flows we can have an explorer where we can define it. So that's again a point of discussion, right? So if anybody has any idea of like for LDVs, can schedule triggered flow can operate that, or can schedule triggered flow arrange or let's say handle LDVs, then that will be fine. That will be great for me.
Yeah, so I think help community or the Trailblazer community, if you put the question there, it will be it will
Yeah,
be
I tried.
people, right? To
Mhm.
and then whoever's expert in that particular topic can give you a more best answer possible for that question, right?
Possibly.
But if
Yeah, I'll
anyone
try.
has some links or any idea, please put it up in the chat to help Prakash if you can. Otherwise, I'll move to the next slide now. So basically through the grapevine, these are the few points I took, grabbed from the grapevine. So basically now Salesforce provides recommendations through this kind of a document for you to take performance into consideration when you're making a choice. So which type of flow to use, or using flows versus Apex, that question. So Salesforce brought out this document. I'll put this link in the chat for this document so you can access it. I can't see my chat. I'll just put it after I stop sharing the link for this, but this is a document where you can make this decision, which type of flow to use, flow versus Apex, and then which tool or products are you going to use for software architecture diagrams. So the popular ones are Lucidchart and Archimate tool, but there's also this one that Salesforce has brought out, this documentation and implementation templates. So that's another one that you can use for software architecture diagrams. And then my advice to follow Steve Moore for awesome formulas and tips on Twitter. So, and then there was this thing, if you had a choice to become instantly Salesforce expert, what, if you could instantly become a Salesforce expert in something, what it would be. Can some 3 answers come up for me? Can someone answer that? If you wanted to be expert at Salesforce, instantly become expert at Salesforce something, then what would it be?
Yeah, people are putting stuff in chat. Some people said Flow and Apex, just 2 people.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So now I will, let me check the Wheel of Fortune. We'll do that. Let me see if there were some more names added.
Meanwhile, one question related that to schedule flow. I have added one link. The blog says it has LDB won't be able to use for means flows we won't be able to use for LDVs. Some detailed are present on the Force Panda blog. So whoever asked that question, they can have a look.
Yeah, Ankit, I just saw it, and it's saying like if you're using some entry condition in this scheduled trigger flow, you will be able to handle LDB. So that's something answered my question. I'll read it more and further. Thanks for sharing, Ankit. Thanks for sharing.
Okay.
And also, this is not for anybody who wants to save the chat. I know there's a lot of links over there. The 3 dots on the right of the smiley face, the emoji. You can save the chat and save the links.
Okay, and now for the Wheel of Names game, right? So I put everybody's name that I received on the document, and now I'm clicking to spin. Dawn. Dawn is the winner. Congratulations. Dawn is here or no?
I think she just left.
Oh,
So you want to try again?
we have to do again, I guess. I'll remove his name. Okay, another chance for everyone. So you have to be here to claim the prize. So please be here till the end. All right, clicking again.
Wow.
Okay. Congrats, luckily. Atias, congratulations to you.
Thank you, Sheeba. It was such a pleasure, and thank you so much for the opportunity. I appreciate Sunil and Sheeba for organizing the event, and luckily it was just my day. That's all I would just say.
Great celebrations.
Yes. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Sheeba.
Yeah. All right. Have a great time, everyone. 5 minutes back to your time. So have a great weekend, long weekend. Thanks for coming. Thanks for joining. Really, really thank you all for participating and giving all your inputs.
Thank you, Sheeba. It was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.